Here for the Solution Film Festival because in the world of storytelling, there's a lot that happens. The creative minds that we have in here are there to give solutions to different problems on a daily basis. But as we talk about it, as we continue to look for funds, just where exactly are we? Do we have the solutions? Have we cracked that node to be able to get that fund, to talk to the funders, to go deeper into their pockets, for them to be able to just listen to what the storytellers have to say, the filmmakers, how they have to shoot, and everybody involved in this space to be able to just keep on churning all these beautiful stories that we have across board. And to be able to have these conversations with us today, we have Tony Kamau. And just who is Tony Kamau? Now, Tony Kamau is a notable figure in the film industry, particularly known for her work in documentary filmmaking. She is a News, Emmy, PGA, and Peabody nominated producer. Hand of applause for Tony Kamau as she makes her way here. Pretty much in the world that you guys do exist in, she is a maestro. Karibuni sana. Yeah? Yeah. So before we actually start, I just want each and every person to introduce themselves and just talk about some of the stories that each of you has and some of the problems that you continue to face in this industry. So I'll just start with you, Tony. Tony, what is this one story that you have brought to the fore, you have produced, that has brought about that change in society that you think these guys need to know about?
Wow, this is the one time I wish it wasn't ladies first. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for inviting me to be part of this panel. Very excited to talk about documentary, something I'm really passionate about. So my name is Tony Kamau. I'm a creative producer and filmmaker and writer. And I'm the founder of a production company called We Are Not the Machine that's based in Kenya. And we like to tell stories of outsiders, rebels, and change makers. And some of the projects, we produce commissioned work for nonprofits, for broadcasters, but we also produce independent documentary content. Some of the projects that I can just briefly talk about highlights. So some recent projects is Softy, which was directed and produced by Sam Soko. It was a production of LBX Africa in co-production We Are Not the Machine, and I was the producer on that. And Softy was the story of Boniface Mwangi, an intimate look at his life and his marriage, and his family and his relationship with Kenya. And it was a story about just these things that we grapple with, priorities. What comes first? Family? Is it your wife? Is it your 3 kids? Is it the shamba you want to get in shags? Or is it your country? Is it contributing towards, having a more inclusive and democratic society? And that is the issue that they were grappling with.
My father who was in heaven, my dad got hurt by that police. Please tell him to get a better job. In Jesus' name we say amen.
This is how you're telling it.
Amen. Ako tu sawa, ni bora tu ape hiyo. Asante.
Does Boniface Mwangi have deep pockets? No, he doesn't. Is he on the right side of the tribal kingpin? No, he's not.
He is going to be a casualty of other forces beyond him.
Do not come home. They will kill you. Activist Boniface Mwangi receiving death threats that for the first time target his wife and children as well.
It feels like just jumping into a river of crocodiles.
And I'll come to you, Eric, now. Eric, as we continue to have this discussion, British Council has come forth as one of the institutions that sees what storytellers have to say, and you've jumped on that and given them the push to continue doing whatever it is they do. So why is it that as Ignite you see the power that does exist in storytelling and filmmaking, and how is that important to you?
Thank you. First of all, I'm really happy to be here. How did I end up here, first of all, is because of, this is my 14th year of working. But the work I've done, before I get to the question, is I've really worked extensively across Africa. I've done projects in Senegal, so happy to have someone from Senegal here. Worked extensively in Burkina Faso. Found myself in Congo, found myself in Madagascar, doing one or two things. But we can delve into that later, but some of the issues that we see are, of course, being highlighted negatively. But at British Council, of course, having presence in some of the 7 countries in Africa, with Ignite Culture is what we're trying to do really post the pandemic to support creatives, including filmmakers. We recently supported Zanzibar International Film Festival. We've partnered with DOCU for a number of years, and the idea really is to build a peaceful and prosperous world through supporting arts and culture. And of course, storytelling is key, not only from where I've worked before. Things are changing. Donors and funders want to hear about the story behind the numbers. Ignite, we have 36 grantees across 10 countries, and this particular point, we're supporting them to tell stories, right? What has the fund done for you? What has the euro done for you? Who's the beneficiary? So the beneficiary, the person who benefits from that funding, that's the beautiful story we are supporting creatives to tell. We're supporting filmmakers to tell. We're supporting different value chains. Oh, my mic is louder. I love it. Yeah. So we are behind the scenes. I call it. We manage the projects, we oversee, and we work with local organizations, local businesses, and creatives who are in themselves the authentic, bona fide person who will tell their stories. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This is Ignite Culture, part of the global ACP EU Culture Program. Launched in 2021, this innovative grant financing facility of between 30,000 and 180,000 euros was designed for the support of creative and cultural industries in 14 countries in Eastern Africa. Prospective applicants must demonstrate that they will implement programmatic support towards at least one of these 4 focus area activities. We are currently supporting our first cohort featuring organizations such as Sima Africa from Uganda, Black Rhino VR from Kenya, Move for Art from Mauritius, and many more. You can read more about our first cohort by following @Ignite Culture on Medium. To learn more about this fund, follow Ignite Culture EA on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, or visit our website.
On every single day, as a storyteller, there's always the next project that you are looking at. Yep. The other day when you're having this discussion, we were talking about you coming up with an idea, coming up with a proposal, taking it to the person who you think should be able to fund you, and them understanding the creative process behind what it is you want to bring out.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's a good question. So I would say, there are normally challenges. They're always there. Being commissioned to a story, but you also have your own personal stories that you want to pretty much to do. And some of these challenges will be, pretty much accessing funds, accessing resources, whether it's, money or through people. But what I would say is, for me, just the whole process of kind of creating, say, a pitch or anything, from my experience working on films with SSP, is I feel nowadays, and especially nowadays, is films and the way we tell stories, there is a need to be more creative, because you see most of these organizations nowadays, there is I would say of late, and of course since COVID and stuff like that, funding has been going down and down and down. And I think the only way to replace that kind of a situation, because at the end of the day is the storytellers or the filmmakers who at the end of not getting the funds and they don't end up doing their stories. But one of the ways I feel is a way of creating such awareness to people who can give you resources is to be more creative in how you're telling stories. That's the only bit for now I feel can surpass anything regarding lack of funds, that has been there all around. So I would say creative storytelling, that's for me, that's one of my biggest things that I always look at. And I feel any creative way of telling a story will definitely create awareness to whoever you want to approach to, because at the end of the day is, once you have that emotional beat, then I believe anyone will be touched to whatever you want to say.
And I'll pick up from that and come to Tony now. Tony, when we were having a discussion earlier, you said there is power of observational documentaries. This is a situation where it is a story that you're telling, but behind it there is an agenda. There is this power in people connecting with stories that we have, bringing out the emotions, bringing out the story in such a way that 10 years later, someone will sit back and say, Tony shot that, it touched me, and it made me do A, B, C, D. So in terms of understanding the story, what comes first? Is it the story? Is it the issue? How important is it for creatives to equally be able to know what to go for first?
Yeah, so I believe in the power of observational documentary storytelling, and just to break down what it means so that we are all speaking the same language. For me, observational documentary filmmaking is about for example, Eric, you work in the culture space. So if I want to know what does that look like, it's Nick going with a camera and following you around, and not just at work. He's with the camera, he's showing you interacting with other people, he's showing your personal life. He's trying to understand, what does Eric want in life? What are Eric's challenges? What is Eric trying to achieve? And spending some time, following maybe Eric trying to achieve a specific goal or grappling with a specific relationship. I believe the power of observational documentary and character-driven documentary is that it gives us such an intimate look into people's lived experiences, and it's one of the biggest privileges that I think we have as documentary storytellers, because someone is allowing you to see, this is who I am, and this is what I'm thinking about inside my house or inside with my very close friends. And I think what that can do is create an opportunity for emotional connection, and people get moved by emotions, because at the end of the day, as humans, wherever you are in the world, we want the same things. We want respect. Yeah? So talking about democracy, talking about gender rights, is about respect. We all want acknowledgement. We want community. Yeah? And I think that's what observational documentaries can do when they're showing people, as they're struggling to get those things that we all struggle with as humans. And I feel that issues then will come through the person who you decide to follow, yeah. And I think it's kind of like a chicken and egg situation, because not everyone cares about the same things, and I think it's dangerous to be that person who's always chasing the trend, like nothing. Because I remember when I saw Africa Climate Summit, I saw people who do tenders over there saying they're climate experts, and I was like, what? You don't even know? Do you even know what the climate? Do you know what climate change is? So I think it's important for you as a storyteller, whether you're a producer, whether you're a director, to care about things, read up, inform yourself, find out what you care about. Is it climate? Is it gender rights? Understand what the issues are, because when you understand what the issues are, then you'll be able to identify stories that can bring out those issues. But I would say it's first educating yourself and making sure that you are informed, about the world, and you're informed about how things interact, so that you can be able to identify them in different, unique ways. Yeah.
Thank you, Tony. And now, Eric, as Tony talks about the need to understand the issue that you're talking about, chasing the trends and just being true to what it is you do. Now, as someone who sits at an institution, an organization that looks for creatives, and how do I approach you through my storytelling to be able to open these doors for me to be able to do what it is I need to do? What do you look for from creatives before you say, yes, I commission you to go to A, B, C, D?
Can you hear me? Yeah. That's a lovely question. And allow me to say two things before I get to that question, because I was just reflecting as Tony was speaking, and based on your question you asked, which one comes first, the impact or the story? So I'll give an example of one project we are supporting. Okay, two projects I've supported. One is currently ongoing with Bomas of Kenya. We are supporting them to digitize traditional music sounds, right? Because, to preserve our culture. So what is the story there? Is it digitizing the traditional music? Sounds good. But when I traveled to Algiers and sat in a makeshift studio listening traditional music from the communities there, that is the story. And we came back and we documented it and said, these guys have gone all around the country and they've done 100+ makeshift studios just to digitize it. So someone will see the end product and play with the sounds, but the story is that traditional music. That guy is playing it so that it's, we digitize it so that it's preserved. So we told it from that angle. So which one comes first? The impact of the story? Both. When we talk about impact storytelling, it's balancing, right? So, of course, we want to see impact, which brings me now to your question. What do we look for? Donors, funders have priorities. We have objectives. Each project has its goal. There's something we're trying to achieve. So what has happened over time with the design is we've tried to simplify the criteria. I tell you, for example, for Ignite, we got 789 applications, and we only chose 36. So we look for uniqueness. We look for what stands out, what hasn't been done before, and if there are samples of that work done. And I link that to this other story I was going to tell. Kibera Fashion Week looks like a video, right? The young gentleman. He didn't have funding, but he said, because Kibera is known for all these things, let me tell a story of something beautiful can come from Kibera. And when he shared that story, the money automatically came. We're like, oh, this is a beautiful story of Kibera, right? And he did it. You'd see the first fashion week he did. It was crowdfunding, and the community supported him. And we were like, whoa. And people traveled all over the world to see that. So anytime, so now he's big. I see him traveling all over. He's busy. He's busy. But so he balances the story, a beautiful story, and the impact. And of course, one of the things that will always happen is people want to see track record of you being able to do it, and people are always impressed by stories that speak to the heart and to the mind, and of course linking that to the priority areas.
We've talked about what the NGOs are looking for. Tony has talked about the focus areas and you understanding the story that you are doing. Now, here's a question where you have this story that is beautiful, that you've thought about, and you've shot it. You've brought it out there. We know your story. But how do we proceed from that, especially if you are an upcoming creative and you don't have this following, you don't know where to go to? So in terms of your communication or your message to someone like Eric, how would you want them to help you, especially if you are an upcoming creative?
So, I mean, for me, it's pretty much giving from a personal, from a personal journey. And I don't think there's like a specific way of doing it. It's pretty much your instincts and like what you feel works with what you have. But for me, will be, first will be by doing, because I like collaborating with so many guys. So, and I believe once you collaborate with someone and you make someone or a partner being involved in your project in the sense that they are invested, like they feel like they own it, then when it comes to distribution or like putting your story out there, then they will carry their story the same way, with the same energy and strength that that you, maybe the story creator has. So yeah, there's that from a collaboration point of view. Then I would say also from a point of, I mean, especially for documentaries nowadays, there's been this new development whereby now, and comes back to what I said, like there's been, lack of funding in these days, and documentaries have found ways, especially I've seen on corporate companies, they've found ways whereby they want to tell a story and they collaborate or they attach themselves to some brands. So the same thing with documentaries. I was watching, an example would be, I was watching this, it's a short commercial, a short documentary about, I think it's about leukemia or something of the sort. Leukemia and something about child adoption. Yeah, it was leukemia and child adoption. It was something I think shot in the UK or in Germany. And yeah, it was a whole 4-minute story talking about child adoption and leukemia. But at the end of the day, what they did for that documentary, they attached that documentary to a corporate brand, and that was KFC. And they found a way creatively to, to have KFC in between the film, but you don't feel the brand. Out there. So I think also by attaching yourself to like those kind of brands, especially right now that there's no funding and stuff like that, it kind of propels your story to more audience. And the whole idea for storytelling is also, especially for documentaries, is you want your story to have more reach, you want your story to have more impact. So the more you attach yourself to this kind of people, then there's going to be more reach, more engagement, and more impact and stuff like that.
So pretty much you're talking about the power of collaborations out there and identifying the specific individuals and companies, NGOs, who would be able to propel your story. And now I come back to the plenary now. Anyone out there who has a question to the panel, or a contribution to the conversation that you're having, or a solution that you think from your end would be able to help us push our projects further? Anybody?
Good morning. My name is Ben Masudi, a student at the Kenya Institute of Mass Communication. I'm also an editor at Homa Bay TV. So I have 3 questions. Okay, I'll go to the most burning question. Tony talked about observational documentary, and she looked at a point whereby we go through people's experiences, whereby we tell stories that move emotions and care about things. When you are doing such kind of documentary, let's say it's a painful story, how do you deal with empathy or sympathy to the point whereby as a filmmaker, you don't get attached to that story to the point whereby you lose the flow of the story?
Say, because at the end of the day, it's understanding that when someone allows you to enter their life with a camera and follow their most intimate moments, that is not your right. That is a privilege you've been given, yeah? And this person is being vulnerable. And I think it's about like, how do you build relationships with people, because it's a relationship at the end of the day. It's not someone that you're filming and then you're like, bye, you see them on the streets, you never talk to them again. It's about being vulnerable. You also as a filmmaker have to be vulnerable with them. It can't just be you coming with a camera 24/7 and then like, now I'm filming. You also have to share something because it's a friendship. Vulnerability is not one way. So when it's talking about empathy, I think empathy is necessary because I think there's also a lot of predatory filmmaking happening, especially with a specific kind of filmmaker that flies into the country from the West, goes to a certain village, tells someone to explain all their trauma that's ever happened to them, and then afterwards they just leave them and they never talk to the person that they're filmed with again, someone who's opened up so much of their life. And I feel that that's also why we need to support filmmakers based on the continent, because we also have like a different understanding of community, and we also have that, I would say, responsibility to respect the people who allow us into their lives, because it is not our right, it is a privilege. Yeah, and it is a relationship, and you need to be empathetic. It's not just about showing someone's trauma, because I think we need to stop doing trauma, poverty porn about Africa. We need to start telling stories about solutions, because I think we also need to tell stories about celebrating people's cultures. Like, even if it's a story where there's a lot of conflict, like for example, we released a film about climate change and how it's intensifying conflicts in Laikipia, and we filmed with the Samburu community. But the first thing that we wanted to do was to understand, what does cattle mean to them? You know, like, how is this such an integral part of their culture? What is their family dynamic? You know, you just also want to just see people hanging around, drinking tea, you know, teasing each other. Like, you want to know that, okay, these guys are pastoralists. Maybe for me, it's a very alien experience, but we care about the same things, and we want the same things. We want respect, we want dignity, we want love, we want community. And I think that has to just be part of your process, because at the end of the day, you're dealing with real people. Yeah, so don't just show their trauma, show their joy. Yeah, thank you.
Nick?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just to, I mean, I feel Tony has has said everything that I could have said, but maybe just to add on what Tony has said is also, I mean, especially that specific issue of vulnerability. I mean, most of us, when we do these long-form stories, and you're following someone's subjects for like 5 years, 6 years, 4 years. You get invested in them, and they get invested in you in a way that you become like family. And there's always, I mean, as Tony has said, life doesn't end, or like your relationship doesn't end immediately after the project or what you're filming. There's more to that, and even in most situations, it's mostly actually, it's the more after the filming, it's the more after the like that current relationship that you guys had. It's actually the biggest picture is actually the after, how you relate with this guy, because at the end of the day, you guys have shared quite a lot. And for us, actually, most filmmakers, I mean, when we do this kind of stories, it's not that sometimes, because they are hard, you're on the ground somewhere in the streets for like 5 years, or somewhere crazy. It's not, some is pretty much coming from a point of even therapy from the filmmaker's perspective. You want you want therapy, and that's your way of getting therapy. So yeah, pretty much just to add on that. And also, I mean, to add on the relationship that comes after, just to give a personal example is, I was following, one of my closest projects is I was following some 6 street dancers who used to dance outside Nairobi, like in the streets. And once when I was doing that film, one of the dancers wanted me to do, he had like a very also unique story, his life and stuff like that, and he pretty much wanted me to do his personal story as a separate thing. And that was like after 3 years or 4 years after I knew him. And when I look back, it comes from a point of, those 3 years and 4 years that I was with him, during the hard times when he was sharing everything, that pretty much he doesn't share even to his folks. That relationship is the one that forced us to bigger and, greater relationships after.
Nairobi, city of wealth, city of power, the cradle of Kenya's celebrity culture. Thousands arrive here from far and wide hoping for a piece of the action. These homeless street dancers have their sights set on the big time too. But it will be an uphill struggle. Their daily lives are a battle for survival. My name is Nick Wambugu. I'm a filmmaker. Seeing how talented these boys were made me wonder, is there a chance they could make it? I persuaded them to let me join them on their journey. It was never going to be easy.
Nilitoa nikashikilia kwa mkono. Mpaka nilitoa nikaonyesha video akakataa kuona video. Walinipiga mpaka mabuti. Inafikanga mpaka wiki mzima mumedance hakuna do.
When I started filming 2 years ago, I had no idea how this story will end. But I was determined to be with them every step of the way.
With all these stories and as filmmakers, there's also a relationship that we create with you as the people who come in to support us. So as we continue to forge in these conversations and these collaborations, because one of the solutions that we keep hearing here is we need to collaborate, we need to work together, we need to understand our stories, and we need to be unique in what it is we do. Therefore, Eric, moving forward, as we proceed post-COVID, we know ilienda chini, but how do we open these doors in a minute or two?
In a minute or two, first of all, is the good news is we work exclusively through partners and consultants, which means there'll always be an open call for applications, right? So, which means there'll always be funds available to support different art forms, including film. The trend is a lot of money, of course, is going to the creatives, and also there's increasing discussion on co-designing and co-creation. So we'll always listen to the creatives. We'll always listen to what makes sense. We have the money is there, it's a fund, but it's not dictated by us. It's actually should be driven by what is practical. What is a real story, what makes sense in the context of the different countries. So when we are designing, it is based from a point of information. It is research based on what is happening, so that it makes sense. There's no point of there's that push. Let Africans tell their African stories. Let Africans own their stories in an authentic way. So, of course, the encouragement will always be to avail the opportunities to share, like we've collaborated with, supported DOCU and also collaborated with them, and we'll keep having those conversations, and we'll keep availing those opportunities based on what is there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of this session, but I just want to say some of the solutions that I've picked up personally. Understand your story. That story will be able to make sense to the funder. And at the end of the day, as the person who's going to the ground, you need to understand your story. You need to equally get out there and make collaborations with those who you think will be able to push your agenda and your project forward. My name is Dennis Aseto, and on stage, Tony Kamau, Asante Sana, Eric Onyango, and Nico Mbugu. Round of applause to you, ladies and gentlemen, for making this a success. Asante Sana.